All right, welcome back. Let's go around the region here now. And first up's Connecticut, where one of the biggest issues for the past few months has been over Metro North. Accidents, delays, complaints about costs. You got angry passengers, angry meetings, angry editorials in general. People aren't happy. And Congressman, this has been festering for a while, but this has been the winter of discontent.
Well, first off, we took too long in Connecticut to buy new trains. So we had some really old trains for a long time, and some of them are still in play. I think the thing that is most difficult for Connecticut is that we don't control or have a controlling interest or even an equal interest with New York when it comes to this train line. You know, someone else is really running it, and it's not us.
And there seems to be some surprises that they keep coming across over some of the math.
When I say someone else, New York controls it.
Absolutely. All right, Dominic, you got a lot of questions. We've talked before about the first 6 weeks haven't exactly been smooth sailing for the new mayor, but there's been some interesting behind-the-scenes rumbling about some of the people he surrounded himself with, and the learning curve, as some have called it, as it relates to how he handles the media. And there's a new piece in City and State. It points to some reasons why, even as it explains that de Blasio is not the first mayor that's gone through these growing pains as it relates to guys like us. But they quote here some folks, or at least source some folks behind the scenes, saying, so far the messaging seems to be more about satisfying the mayor's big picture progressive vision than managing the daily news cycle. One unnamed communication strategist said of de Blasio's press team, quote, they seem to think that life is visionary, but on the day-to-day stuff, they just can't get their act together. Have you noticed that yourself?
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. When you're covering the mayor of New York City and the press corps, it really is about personal relationships, whether or not you trust each other. I remember, for example, going back to Mayor Dinkins, David Dinkins, and it's all based on, in some cases, how you start out. Most mayors, you refer to them by their last name. You don't call a mayor of New York City by their first name. You certainly don't call the first African-American mayor by his first name. So Mayor Dinkins had an issue with that when reporters were calling him David. So he instructs his press secretary at the time, nice gentleman who wore bow ties, Albert Scardino, to tell the press, do not refer to the mayor as his first name. From that day on, Albert Scardino was done, dead, no connection with the media. He was thrown out, even though he was following the mayor's directive. In comes back Lee Jones, who did press under Mayor Koch. So, and Lee Jones had a pretty good relationship with, given the Dinkins administration, going forward. It's all about personal relationships.
But they got to understand, every day is its own fight. And this whole idea of visionary stuff like that, people are working on deadlines. They don't care.
The media don't see it that way.
Yeah.
Friday, as you just pointed out, Friday night I was with a group of about 40 reporters. And what are they saying? That Mayor de Blasio privately, that he's not ready for prime time. That's what they're all consistently saying.
Okay, let's get to some state politics now. Obviously, everybody's looking for who is going to challenge Andrew Cuomo. And some people say, not me. But the guy on your screen right there, good friend to the program, Rob Astorino, Westchester County Executive, won re-election again in a democratically registered advantage county here. He, by all intents and purposes, looks like he's the nominee. In fact, we had Bill O'Reilly, who's campaign manager for all intents and purposes, on Friday saying pretty much it's not if, but when. Yet we still haven't heard an announcement. We're supposed to amend his self-imposed deadline of the 28th. Should we read anything into that or no?
You know, it looks like it's still going to go forward in the next few days, that he still will announce. I think this big question still, and maybe Bill can answer this, is why is he putting himself out there to do this? This is such an uphill battle for him. By every single measure that you need to win a campaign, he doesn't have the name recognition, he doesn't have the money, he doesn't have issues on his side. I mean, there's so many things about this that are
I'll give you two numbers
baffling.
I heard, and you're close to this. You tell me if they're right. One is $15 million minimum he's got to raise, and the other is 43%. He's got to get at least 43% of the general. Otherwise, this was, Don Quixote here. Why'd you do it? You're popular, you won. Why would you got a career ahead of you. This isn't a fight worth taking. Do you agree with those two numbers? He's got to raise that amount. He's got to at least hit 43 of the overall.
I think he's got to raise 30 to 35 million to mount a raise. He said he has 15 million in pledges. We know the governor has 33, 34 million already in the bank, and he's got the benefit of being in the incumbent, the free media that comes with that, the bully pulpit. So I would think he needs to raise about 30 million to contest this. You look at the latest Quinnipiac poll, 8 in 10 New Yorkers have no sense of who he is, no opinion of him. And about 70% want the governor to be reelected. I mean, you talk about an uphill battle on this part.
I think the governor's more vulnerable than some. Do you agree or not?
I do. But my latest thing is I think that Astorino is going to be like Thomas Dewey. I think he's going to run, get his name out there, come closer than people expect, and come back in 4 years and try again. That's my latest calculation on this, because I can't imagine.
Do you think he could turn that into a race for something else, a race for another statewide office or for a U.S. Senate spot, let's say?
I mean, he could potentially. In New York, it's awfully hard at this point, but he could potentially make a name for himself in GOP circles. And let's face it, there is, a huge, absence of Republicans in the state.
Statewide race he wants to run for.
So he could, if he's strong. I mean, I think the big question is, does he get hurt? Does Cuomo come out, and Dominic knows this better than anybody, does he come out, Cuomo's team come out and really, take Astorino and make it really difficult for him to run again? And I think you think it's possible.
Here's what we do know about Team Cuomo. They don't play fairly.
But there is a debate. Do they raise the profile of a guy that people don't know to beat him up? Or do they say, forget it, we're going to take him to the woodshed? I mean, he's got a big problem because you don't have to explain social issues when you're a county exec. But how do you win statewide being pro-life and against gay marriage?
Governor Cuomo's not building up anyone. He's trying to take you out from day
Just
one.
ask fellow Democrats.
Right.
Okay. When we come back, everyone, we'll leave the world of politics and we'll talk about last night, the Oscars. We all saw parts of it. The question is, was it a hit or not? The ratings say it was. Some people rumbling they missed some of the snarkiness in some prior ones. We'll talk about this with the table after this.